opportunity to be together in community. This is a time to celebrate and acknowledge the joy, comfort, and sometimes the challenges that we face as a community. We come together in this Unitarian Universalist congregation to learn more about being human. We learn how to listen, how to forgive, how to grow in trust and compassion. You are welcome here as you are. If you are visiting, I hope you'll take the time to get to know us. Welcome to a time of connection. Welcome to the space made sacred by your presence.
On this special day, may we be reminded here of our highest aspirations. May we be inspired once again to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but that we're connected in mystery and in miracle to the whole universe, to this community, and to each other. Blessed be. We have a responsive reading, which I think you have in your order of service. The custom is I do the first few words, and then we join together for the boldface. And again, you will find it in your order of service. The 1st of January is another day dawning. The sun rising as the sun always rises, the earth moving in its rhythms. Without our calendars to name a certain day as a day of new beginning, separating the old from the new. And so it is. Everything is the same, bound into its history as we ourselves are bound. And also, in that threshold, the new year, something truly new, still unformed, leaving a stunning power in our hands. What shall we do with this great gift of time this year? Let us begin remembering whatever justice, whatever peace and wholeness might bloom in our world this year. We are the hearts and minds, the hands and feet, the embodiment of all the best visions of our people. The new year can be new ground for the seeds of our dreams. Let us take this step forward together, and I'm going to say, as we are able, and I think you can appreciate that, onto new ground, planting our dreams well, faithfully, and joy. Amen. Our first hymn this morning, and I know you're ready for this, James. Number 153, Oh, I Woke Up This Morning. And we're going to sing like we're in the South, because we are in the American South. So put your heart into this and welcome the new year. There are people who help with the technology, with the music, with religious education, with the coffee hour, with maintaining the building. It's a mutual aid project. Many people bring these Sunday services together, and many people bring together the activities during the rest of the week. And it's a point that needs to be acknowledged and to be celebrated. And of course, I welcome SWIM, all of you SWIM people, because SWIM too is a mutual aid organization held together by volunteers. It's participatory, equalitarian. It represents the values that are especially important for Unitarian Universalists. So I especially welcome SWIM this morning, and I say thank you. You are an inspiration. Now, some of you go home, and you see family members and friends who are not, okay? How's that? Can you hear me? All right. Now, if you can't hear me, just speak up. Say, use the mic, use the mic. Okay. Because it's always a little bit awkward when people tell me an hour from now, you know, you were really a wonderful speaker, but I couldn't hear anything you said, you know. And it's been known to happen. Okay. If you can't hear me, ask me to speak up. Okay? All right. Friends and family will ask, what did the preacher talk about? And you can say, well, he welcomed the new year, and he said that he hoped that it would be a happy new year for everybody. And then he talked a little bit more about happiness. And then he said something about the American Revolution, all right? You know, the American Revolution. How did he connect those two themes? And at the end, well, he hoped that everything goes well for all of us the next 12 months, because he said it's going to be a year of challenges. And for some of you, it's going to be a year of some real difficulties. And that's what the preacher said, or at least it's what the preacher is about to say. Okay. I will wish you a happy new year, and I hope it's a good one. But I caution you, there will be challenges this year especially. We woke up, not this morning, but yesterday morning, to hear that Venezuela had just been invaded. Maybe that wasn't a surprise, but I hope that it's still upsetting. And I hope it still brings us not just to reflection, but to some good actions that will help not just our community and not just the United States, but will be helpful to people in Latin America throughout the world. American imperialism. Well, we never really lost it, but it's certainly being celebrated this moment. This year is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. 250th anniversary. And of course, the fireworks go off for the 4th of July. We anticipate big celebrations. Donald Trump will be presiding over the national festivities. So we expect a celebration of American imperialism, how great we are, how we can project our power into every part of the globe if we want to. Everywhere. No place exempt. We'll have a celebration of Christian nationalism. You can imagine what that will involve. We'll have a celebration of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump likes to celebrate Donald Trump. So you have a few months, about 6 months, in which to think about these things, to think about what it is you want to do in this new year, what it is you want to do today, what you want to do for the 4th of July. Sad to say, there are still many Unitarian Universalist congregations that, well, essentially close for the summer months. But I hope that this year is different. I hope that every Unitarian Universalist church stays open for the summer months, because that's when the action takes place. And a lot of action will take place, starting in July and going all the way to the elections in November, and maybe even beyond that. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But I will say that this last 12 months certainly has been a time of transformation. 12 months ago, before the inauguration, it was hard to imagine what would happen in this country. I don't think we anticipated all of the ICE raids. We had seen ICE raids before. But suddenly, National Guard was present in many cities, and things really got rough in places like Chicago, Los Angeles, other towns that could be mentioned. 12 months ago, nobody had ever heard of Alligator Alcatraz. And then that came into being in the summer months. Nobody could imagine anything like that. Imagine a state government building what is essentially a concentration camp to hold people who may or may not be guilty of any particular crime. 12 months ago, it was difficult to imagine the criminalization of the homeless. The homeless obviously face some difficult times. They always do. They're the most vulnerable during extreme weather, hot and cold. But still, they weren't exactly criminals. They were often moved from place to place. I don't know what's happened in Hillsborough County during the last 12 months, but over in Pinellas County, where I live, there have been over 700 arrests in 12 months of people who essentially weren't doing anything more than sleeping in public parks or under bridges or being in places where they really weren't wanted. Criminalized because of their homelessness and because of their poverty. And that's what's happened in the last 12 months. 700 arrests that we know of, that we can identify in Pinellas County. You may have some figures like that over in this area. Problems from the Native American tribes, problems for other groups. DEI programs were still in place 12 months ago. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, celebrated in many places. And all of those government-supported programs are gone at this point. You don't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion much these days. Some of the corporations persist, but many of them have dropped their commitment to such things. It's increasingly difficult to have a discussion about systemic racism. It's increasingly difficult now to have a discussion that affirms the rights of transgender people. Women's rights, the right to abortion. Well, abortion rights were always rather shaky in this country. The situation has grown worse. These are things that we reflect upon. And there'll be more need for reflection in this new year. We need to think about resistance. That started to happen in some places for the Unitarian Universalists. The National Association has asked that we celebrate January as Resistance Month. That's interesting. Resistance Month. I have a nice reading from the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Costa Mesa, California. And this is how they're celebrating January. This is from their newsletter, which I found online. This is what our brothers and sisters say. When we hear the word resistance, we often imagine something dramatic. We imagine marches, megaphones, moments of public courage. And these forms of resistance matter, and they matter deeply. But resistance is not only something that we rise into. Resistance is something that we practice day by day, often quietly. Building and sustaining community is a daily practice. Showing up for meetings, volunteering, making the village work in the right sort of way for young people, for elderly people, for all people. Checking in on people who are struggling. Even when the check-ins, the wellness checks may not be easy. All of these become acts of resilience. Resistance is not a single heroic act. Resistance is a way of living that says again and again, the way things are now, the way things are at present in this country, this is not the way we want things to be. We want transformation. And we practice a resistance through kindness, through acts of courage, persistence, and by keeping hope alive. And that's from the church newsletter in Costa Mesa, California, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. So what will this congregation do as it prepares for the 4th of July? Well, I can offer many suggestions. We realize, of course, that it's an election year, and there is a need to educate voters, to help with voter registration and other activities. and not to begin in September or October when we're close to the registration deadlines. I suggest we need to start with the 4th of July or even earlier. We need to talk about this new statement that the Unitarian Universalist Association is developing. It's about abolition. There's special concern about the prison system and how we need to reform prisons and how we need to get beyond reform into a, well, if you can imagine a world in which imprisonments are less common, in which we emphasize things like proper health care, community support, empowerment, human dignity, in place of punishment and cruelty. We have a national discussion in progress about what's called the carceral system, and I encourage this congregation to get involved, to ask questions when questions need to be asked, and to raise suggestions about how this abolition discussion ought to proceed. I think about Lyle Crocodile. He was actually locked up at one point, right? You can share that story with your grandchildren. But think about what that story is really about. These are some of the things we need to do for the 4th of July. But I keep coming back to this theme of reflection that goes beyond just the American Revolution. We realize that the American Revolution is always a work in progress. We realize that the pursuit of happiness is difficult, perhaps even impossible for many people. People who struggle because of systemic racism or homophobia. People who are oppressed for other reasons. How can they participate in the American dream? The American Revolution has always been a work in progress. We're always trying to open the doors to new opportunities. We need to reflect upon government. Now, we want good government, and I emphasize that point frequently from the pulpit. Good government is something that's needed. Certainly large programs like Social Security and FEMA. But we can't always depend on government. We've learned that lesson during the past year. There are times when government seems to go in the wrong direction. It can become downright oppressive. And our duty, our religious duty, our moral duty has always been to question government, to hold government accountable, to try to get things moving in the right direction. But beyond that, there's the recognition that this pursuit of happiness, well, good government is needed, but Uncle Sam won't make us happy. I'm sorry to reveal that. There's no act of Congress that will lead you to a better life, although it may be helpful to have Congress on our side. Much of what is needed is simply to pull together. Nowadays we talk about mutual aid. We look to organizations like SWIM. We look to organizations where people of different faith traditions help with housing justice or food justice. When we talk about mutual aid, we talk about voluntary actions. We talk about empowerment, participation, frequently multi-generational cooperation, certainly multi-faith. Communities helping not just their own people, but helping other communities as well. All of these things I ask you to hold in your mind during the next 12 months. Pete Seeger, you all remember Pete Seeger. He was a Unitarian Universalist. I don't know if you knew that or not. He said, if the world can be saved, it will be saved by millions of small acts of kindness. People just showing up at the right time. People caring for each other because they want to care for each other. And that's what it's really all about in this year of revolution. Namaste. Well, with Pete Seeger in mind, do we happen to have a Pete Seeger song? Okay, I've been told that this is the last song that Pete Seeger wrote. So we'll see. That's the message for the new year. Okay. We'll see what we can do. Let's see what I can do. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the friendly art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all, once again, that we must hold the whole world in our hands. Blessed be.